IVM.
Did you know that you can just download Cred and let it take care of your credit card bills? You really can. It gives you reminders when you're approaching your due date, looks for hidden charges on your bill, and even gives you some kick-ass rewards and cashback. It really pays to be good. Just download Cred. Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashton Doctor, your habit coach. And today we're going to be discussing a very serious topic. It's a topic that I get a lot of messages on, especially in this recent time. It's about grief, and grief in particular about people passing away. We're seeing people passing away all around us. Death is there in our families, in our friends. Some of us have been affected by it. And all these emotions need to be processed. And no one teaches us how to do that. And there are ways in which we can process these emotions and understand what we're going through. Because otherwise, it puts us in a spin. We don't necessarily know where we are or what to do next. So today we have Jnana Sabharwal, who's going to be talking to us about this. She runs Safe Space India. And we've worked in the past together on various topics like suicide and things like that. So it's important for us to understand what grief is, what death is, and how we can internalize this. Jnana, welcome to the Habit Coach podcast.
Thank you so much, Ashton. And thank you for doing this topic because absolutely, I think it's a time where we really need to be talking about this. Something that while I consider it a life skill, it's something we're never really taught. And then when it arrives, we're kind of thrown into the deep end to figure it out on how to make this complex emotion simple for ourselves to cope with.
Yeah. And it is a touchy topic. It is a topic that people are trying to avoid, but it is something that I think is an essential conversation that needs to be had.
Absolutely.
Right? Many people might feel uneasy listening to this podcast, and that is fine because you have to understand why are you feeling uneasy.
Yeah.
Right. And if you understand why you're feeling uneasy, then that uneasiness goes away.
Yes, absolutely. I think the most important thing about grief and loss surrounding death, right? So grief and loss is a very broad conversation and topic. But if you talk about it in terms of death, by design, we are built to block it out. Loss of our loved ones and things like that are probably literally put ourselves into a sense of survival, right? That is the worst case to lose your pack. Right? If you look at prehistoric or you look at animals, we're all moving around in packs, right? You won't see that so much with, say, the reptilian world, but the packs, your group of safety, of, hunting together and growing together and living together. And as human beings, that's our, mode of safety, survival, support, all of those sort of things. We're tied in to each other so intrinsically, especially in the Indian society, right? That the loss of a loved one is really, really intense. And we are built to actually not think about it. We're built to block it and deal with it when it occurs, right? Yet, we don't know how to deal with it when it occurs. But we have the most important inherent mechanism that is called grieving, which is the process of processing your grief, right? Processing the loss, not just the physical absence of the person, but everything that went with it. What you will not able to feel with them anymore, all the conversations you will not have anymore, the fact that it is somebody somewhere I had read, which was really beautiful. It's all the love that you will not able to give anymore. And all the love you may not able to receive anymore. And that's what you're actually, kind of grieving or missing for that matter, and it really, again, depends on who the person is or what role they play in your life and all of those sort of things. But it is so deeply human to able to grieve, right? In a time like this, and unfortunately, the way we have built society and norms is, you can live with somebody for 40, 50 years, but when they pass, we give ourselves 13 days to miraculously do everything and then move on with life. It's almost like 13 days, person should be like forgotten and you move on with life. But that's not how, years and years of loving and caring and, dreams and aspirations are ever going to go. So that is, I think, the most important thing is that grieving continues even after day 13, and to give ourselves space to do that, because what you're losing is not just the physical presence, but like I said, so much more that goes with it. Grieving in the time of COVID and the pandemic is so much more different, and it's harder. And, usually when we lose someone, it's called grieving. And then when you lose them in, extra strenuous circumstances, we call it complex grief.
Oh, wow.
And
what is complex grief?
So when we lose somebody to, for example, a suicide or, say murder or something like that, those are extra strenuous. It's not a natural death. Even though it's an illness currently, what we are seeing is there are situations where there's a lack of medication or lack of facilities, or there is a lack of, say, oxygen. So those are extra strenuous activities. Or somebody may be in hospital and then, say, for example, the oxygen switched off for some time and they lost in that period of time, right? So they are actually not regular or normal forms of loss, which would be if you had, say, a heart attack or somebody was ill for a really long time, right? Which gives you time to process that I may lose this person.
Correct.
Right? Here it is, the extreme sort of shock of the loss itself that comes with an extra strenuous circumstances and therefore complex grief. So first, grief has stages that we talk about. There's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance. Right?
You want to go through each of these?
Yeah, we will go through it. But here there is a layer of shock, which usually comes with that complex grief where you're suddenly thinking, but he was in hospital and he was getting better. How could that oxygen go off,
Correct.
for example? So I don't want to go.
He was so fit. How could he have died?
Absolutely. And he was young.
He was young.
Yeah. So those factors become really the shock of, but it was not meant to happen. Right? And there is this huge question of why him? Why did other people survive, for example? Or we get into those kinds of questions that come with complex grief, right? And especially when it is that, like I said, it's not a long-term illness or something like that, right? Where suddenly, first of all, there is a shock of this wave, and then there's the shock of the loss that is coming with the wave. Now, also to recognize in the second wave, we're seeing a lot more of it than we did in the first.
Oh, yeah. Right? The first, we hardly saw
so,
anything compared to what we're going through now.
What we're going through now. And so there is that already that fear that we have of, what we call long-term stress that we are experiencing since the year and a half. And with that, there is just, this complete lack of understanding of a prognosis of the illness, which is so different for different people, right? So coming back to the stages of grief, the first in this case is shock, to just even go through the process of that somebody didn't make it. It wasn't meant to be a fatalistic sort of outcome. Right. But in this case, it is. And so with the shock comes the denial of, I'm not willing to accept that this has happened. It isn't happening. You're kind of pushing it aside, saying, no, absolutely not. This person's going to come back. I know he's going to come back. This is, and you're telling yourself those things. So there's a whole bunch of, defense mechanisms that come up in order for us to not feel the extent of that loss that we are feeling. So you will hear that, are you sure, doctor? Can you try again? But I just spoke to him 2 hours ago. He was fine. Right. So that whole shock and denial come at a really, intense wave. The important thing is to understand is that when I'm saying these stages, it doesn't mean that everybody will go through them all. It doesn't mean that they go in exactly the same format. Some people may skip stages. Some people may go through all. So I'm just giving you a sense of, so that we're able to name what stage we are in. And that will just make us more aware of how to take care of ourselves better. The second bit is the anger, right? Why me? why is this happening to me, or why he was so young, or you start kind of taking it out on other people because you're not able to process grief and pain. When you're not able to process grief and pain, it turns into anger, because that's more easy to kind of project outwardly. Right? So we start getting really, really angry. We're angry with the system. We're angry with people around us. We're angry with, the doctors and the nurses and, everything around us that's falling apart. Right? So there's just a whole bunch of anger that we start then blaming everybody, because when something doesn't go right, we need somebody to blame. Even though there isn't, and we know that there is a disease out there that is beyond our understanding today, we still want to blame.
Correct.
Yeah, because then there is some form of justice that occurs, right?
In fact, that was the stage that we were seeing a couple of weeks ago as well on social media. Even right now, there was just so much anger being portrayed against everybody, against the system, against people, against this, against that, because that anger was just not being able to be, or people weren't being able to process their anger in another way.
Absolutely. And the grief right now, Ashton, is not just about loss of a loved one. It is the loss of a promise of a medical system. It is the loss of a promise of people's dreams shattering. They may have thought that they have come out of it, and that's what we were told. Right. But now we're back into this and worse. So it's a feeling of perceived betrayal. I was told that this was going to be okay. I was told I was going to be taken care of. I was told this was over. Right. There is this whole anger, also the grief of realizing how no matter what we have, we're working our whole life, that if a bed is not available, it's not available. There's nothing I can do. The loss of, say, control over getting access to medical care, right? So today we're expressing and experiencing grief at several different levels. And that's what it is. That's what we need to call it, right? The loss in itself is probably the final thing, right? But we're losing something every step of the way, every single day. We're losing days as well.
Correct.
And that's important. And there is expressed anger. And the important thing is that we express our anger as a healthy anger, because repressed anger is worse than expressed anger. But as long as we're expressing our anger in a healthy way, it's going to be better for us as a collective, where then we're able to take responsibility for what we're saying as well. But it's okay to say that I am angry.
But what does that look like? What would a healthy anger look like?
So healthy anger is when I say it and then it isn't with the intent to hurt anyone, or, it isn't, bringing someone down. It is saying I am angry because XYZ, the anger is expressed and then I'm feeling okay. Right? Unhealthy is when I am looping in that anger and trying to blame and trying to bring people down along with it because I'm so angry. I want to kind of create destruction.
Revenge, all those things.
Revenge and all of those sort of things, which is not necessarily healthy anger, right? That is unhealthy, and that's actually not good for, the grieving process in itself. We get kind of looped into that. From the anger, we go into bargaining situation, which is to say, if only I had done this, or if I had treated her better, or if we had gone to the hospital earlier, or if this had happened, or if only that had happened. The what ifs come in, right? The if onlys come in. It is again to make us feel that we had somehow control over that situation and that we could have done something different to make it different. But the truth is, with if you go into the spirituality angle, is that death is inevitable. And when it happens is not within our control. Right. And even though we want, because we believe that we need to protect our loved ones, that we may not have that. And that's become a reality. Right.
Correct.
And that is something that we are all struggling with. And therefore, there is that feeling of loss of control and things like that, but also that we will then therefore bargain. Doctor, if he just can, get through today, or God, if he can get through today,
give him 2 more days.
2 more days, I believe that, and that is where the bargaining comes in, and that's what keeps us the hope, right? Or if I had done something different then, and then we actually go into active depression, or the feeling of the sadness, which when we realize that, hey, you know what? The person isn't coming back. My anger is not going to bring him back. No amount of bargaining that I do is bringing that back. right, in this grief process, landing to the point where, questioning, oh God, how am I going to go on now? That person was so important to me, or why did it, kind of happen to me? And at this point of time, it'll be really, if we get support and help, even if it means, reaching out to a grief counselor or a support group, or, so that you can actually access together these questions, because these questions are really about, us believing, that, oh, I cannot go on without this person, or this person has played such an, is my mom, how can I live without my mom? That somebody is actually actively helping us negotiate that, grief, so that it doesn't become a spiral off downward into, an active depression of sorts, which is very, very possible.
Correct.
Right, when there isn't a healthy space to actually talk about these fears, and finding a sense of rooted strength to say, what, this has happened, I will give myself the time to grieve and continue to grieve. And grief means crying, we tell ourselves we need to be strong and strong for the rest of the family, and I shouldn't cry because crying is weak. Crying is the body's inherent process of healing. Right? Grieving is healing. If we're not doing that, we're extending the pain, we're extending the loss. Right? And so when people actually stop that process, or try to get into the way, or distract that process, versus sitting with the grief and pain and saying, hey, this is grief and pain, it's kind of getting in the way of the natural process. It's a natural process, and the body knows how to heal, because this is life's cycle.
Lovely.
Yeah. And then eventually when we
one second before that, sorry. So one aspect is getting outside help, talking to a counselor, talking to a therapist. What are the stages that you should do probably before that? Are there a few things that they can do at home in terms of maybe journaling, maybe writing, maybe grounding? What are the things that people should do as a toolkit when they realize that they're in a state of grieving?
Yeah. So it depends, again, identifying what stage you are in of grieving. So are you in denial? Are you in anger? Are you in bargaining? Are you in, sadness and depression? So that really helps, because each stage will require something else from you. Okay. Important to keep the memories alive. Don't feel that you need to push them away. Talk about your loved one. We kind of don't talk because we feel mommy will get sad if I talk about daddy, or, somebody else will feel sad. So reach out to a friend then, but make sure you're constantly talking as a way to, unburden yourself of the emotions. Writing a letter to the person who's gone, and writing a response in return is a very, is a beautiful process, because there were things that weren't said, and you would have probably wanted them to know. And, the person, so you can actually even write a response back from them to yourself, which is kind of a beautiful closure loop as well. Please allow yourself to grieve and feel the pain of that loss. It's not lack of strength. It's not weakness. It's natural. It is healing. Reading books on loss is very helpful, so that we understand we're not alone. And the reason being that when we feel alone, we tend to not necessarily give access to the feelings that we have. And which is why a support group is hugely helpful, even from the very beginning. Because knowing that you're not alone, and that when you grieve in a collective, it has a power of healing that is far much more than trying to do it on our own. Right? Journaling is a great way of doing that as well. The one thing I wouldn't recommend is, trying to eat to, distract the emotion, or, sometimes we may need distraction, but not trying to completely distract ourselves from what we're feeling. Because again, the moment we're able to give our feeling the room to breathe, it will begin to heal itself. We just need to pay attention to it. We need to kind of remind ourselves that it is a real loss, and with that will come a certain amount of pain that we need to pay attention to. And only when we pay attention to, will we actually know what we need. Yeah. And when we're able to do that from the very beginning, right? we will actually able to reach a place of acceptance that, you know what, and usually that happens about 6-8 months post the loss. Yeah, people say time is a great healer, but time without self-care is not. Right? Time without grieving is not.
Correct.
Because you may get into the routine of the day, but the pain is still somewhere in your system. The idea is that the pain in itself should heal. Many of us may feel guilty to move on with life. Right? Many feel that, oh, how can I forget and move on? Allow yourself, because you will never forget the person. What you are trying to do is move on and be kind with yourself while you're trying to do that. And those are factors that will, finally bring in the acceptance and say, you know what, I lived great years. Remember the memories. And, it has come to this. But, and many people are doing things to keep their memories alive. You will come to that as well. Ways to keep them alive, either in something that you do or something that you choose or something that you say, I want to, I have people who say, oh, I want to do this yearly thing in their memory, for example. And those are factors that will show you that there'll be a gentle, kind acceptance that will come of the loss that we are experiencing. So those are essentially the stages that we do go through, and we will all go through them. And the only thing I'll say is that we can do that together as a collective, because there are spaces that are safe enough to grieve, and that is important.
Before going ahead, we'll take a quick break.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week, Cred, TheWholeTruthFoods.com, and Siet Tires. We really do appreciate the support. So the last year's been tough for all of us, and the second wave of COVID really hit us badly. To help those affected by the pandemic in India, the podcasting community has come together under the Pod for Change banner to raise funds through an exclusive NGO partner, Give India. Join IVM and Pod for Change as we look to make a positive impact in the life of those affected by COVID-19. You can go to tinyurl.com/podforchangeindia, and remember, somebody could really use the help. And now back to the promo. On the Simplified podcast, the gang explains the oxygen crisis happening in the country and tells us the various measures being taken to tackle it. On States of Anarchy, Hamsani Hariharan talks about how the geopolitical relationships shaped COVID response and the world order. As Indians, we're all familiar with acid reflux or heartburn, given the spicy food we consume. On The Habit Coach, Ashton has some simple solutions to counter that. Vatsama Moria explores the iconic neighborhood of Dadar and tells us its connection to outer space in Postcards from Nowhere. It was Dangle time on The Fighting Goat, as hosts Somesh and Arjun were joined by unbeaten MMA fighter and Commonwealth gold medalist Ritu Fogart. The traveling professor Siddharth Deshmukh shares examples of various innovations that came up during the COVID times and helped us deal with the situation. And with that, we hope to see you again next week.
And we are back. Nana, when death takes place, right? And you've been living with that person, you have to then, take care of their the stuff that they have at their home, their clothes, etc., etc. Are there any right ways of doing this? Are there wrong ways of doing this? Should you immediately clean up? Should you not do it? Should you wait? Should you not throw things away? Have you done any, study or work or have thoughts on what you should be doing at this stage?
So again, this is what they do, what I know research says versus what an individual does. I personally feel is individual, right? So when I lost my mom, we've still got her stuff 25 years later, right? And it's just something that we keep, right? Whereas I know that when there was the loss of somebody else in our family, within a week's time, we said, hey, you know what, this is what the person would have wanted. And, it's fine. We can happily, give it away. Somebody had a younger son who said, I know that he would have wanted his stuff to be not kept in a cupboard and locked. So many people go through that process. Is there a right time? It's usually you give yourself at least 45 days to 60 days to come to some semblance of going through the motions of the shock and the denial, right? So at least 2 months to allow yourself, and then to sit down and really ask yourself what would the family member would have preferred, and what would you prefer to do, and what seems right Many people make this as a larger family discussion. And that can be, a difficult conversation because people would have different views on it. But the best way to do it is to say, what would that person have wanted to do with their things? And then to take like a collective conversation forward. Otherwise, that can get into a place of, oh, I don't think it's too early. What do you mean? You don't want to get into that, right? Because the idea is to keep the person's, sensibilities alive. Right. Yeah. And that I would say that, usually a safe space is with it after 45 to 60 days that people come around and say, I'm ready to even think about it, or even go to that place, into that room and touch those things. And that there is no right and wrong way. If it feels okay and safe to you earlier, then please do,
I think something that me and my family did as soon as last year, in fact, when the first wave was starting and we were talking about COVID and all of that, was we started having lots of discussions on death. We started talking about it. And this is a conversation which my dad used to shy away from and not touch with a 12-foot long pole. Okay. Yeah. Ashton, why would we even have a discussion like that? No. We must not talk about like when my grandmother used to talk about, now I will die in another year at that point of time. At that point of time, he used to be like, no, you cannot say such things and stuff like that. And we started having these conversations, and it helped a lot because we said, all right, yeah, this is going to be there. There's going to be inevitability. Let us start making our wills. Let us start talking about death.
Yeah.
And then we all started reading a lot about it. We started looking at the spiritual aspects of it. And there were so many interesting things that came up because, death is one of those things that nobody knows what's going to happen next. And if anybody knows, they're all lying, that whole conversation about it, because who's gone and come back, right?
Yeah.
And another point of time, there are so many theories about it. But one of the beautiful ones was to think about death as a stage of life, like how your butterfly has the cocoon stage before it becomes a butterfly. It's a transitionary phase.
Yeah.
And, there are so many different ways of looking and appreciating death.
Yeah.
We fear death.
Yeah.
We don't celebrate death. There are certain cultures that celebrate death because they believe that, oh, wow, you've gone to something far better. Right? You left us here and we're stuck in this place. You go off to somewhere better. So it is interesting to know about these things. And if you haven't researched death in these formats, it's important to do that. Because like we discussed in the previous podcast, we talk about not having the right information.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about lack of control, and death is the ultimate one.
Yeah.
No information, we don't know what's going to happen. No control, kab hoga.
Yeah.
Right? So as a result, it creeps up on us. But the more we can understand it, or at least intellectually understand it, a large part of the anxiety for death starts reducing.
Yes.
To the extent, and this is going to sound crazy to most people, but I remember this so well. Dad and I were sitting in the car and we were driving, and my dad. And my dad is the very curious type. He wants to know about everything, right? Like, Ashton, why is this like this? And why is this like this? And why is this like this? And I just looked at Dad one day and I said, Dad, I'm so excited for you to die. And he was like, what?
Oh my God. Yeah. What?
Very, very morbid.
Yeah.
But I was like, I think we had just come from somebody's funeral when I told him this. I was we were discussing death at that point in time. And I was like, I'm so excited that about when you die, because it is completely new for you. And you're going to just enjoy the curiosity of it all.
Yeah, I get that.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was having these, and I think these discussions that I started having with my parents at least have helped me deal with the anxiety of what ifs.
Yeah.
What if this happens with them? What if that happens with them? And I went through the whole process of, and there's another morbid thing that I do. I don't know if I've ever told you about this, but every morning, and this is part of my gratitude practice, strangely, every morning in my mind, I kill them. Right? I imagine that my parents are dead.
Yeah.
And what that does is there is this moment of panic and grief and all of that. And then it comes back to saying, no, but they're alive right now.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of me constantly worrying about them dying, I have them right now. How do I make the most of this? And I started this practice because ever since I moved back with them, as all parents, they irritated the hell out of me, right? Like, Ashton, Ashton. Like, So how do you appreciate them in this moment? And you have them right now. And gratitude, again, is such a powerful tool to use, especially when it comes to things like death, when you can appreciate the person while he's alive right now.
Yeah.
And once someone has passed, you can use gratitude to appreciate the moments that you shared with them.
Absolutely.
Right? Once you've gone through the grief, you can pause and say, wow, thank you for being there.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of, why did you have to go and leave me here?
Yeah.
Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for these moments. And these moments are the ones that we have to hold on to, think about, cherish. Like me playing carom with my granny, right? Doing funny things with her, my grandmother. She was my best friend while growing up. Right? So all those things, those are the moments that you have to hold on to instead of wondering about, what if this, what if that, what if this?
Yeah.
And like you said, it's this grieving process. You have to go through the grief. You have to cry. You have to feel that, oh my God, this is the last moment I'm seeing them.
Yeah.
And then remember them in the way that fills you with joy.
Yes, absolutely. For somebody like me who lost both my parents earlier on, so when I lost my father, we make ourselves believe that we cannot exist and survive without that person, because attachment is a biological need for survival. Yeah. And our closest attachment people are our primary caregivers.
Correct.
Right. Or our spouse, or, whoever we're attached to. And by attachment, I don't mean the Buddhist concept of attachment. I just mean, the person that we live with the most, or we care for, and we have a symbiotic relationship with. But that's exactly what I felt when my dad died. And I feel it's been 15 years, 16 years since. And, when I think back of that day, I genuinely believed, and that was my biggest fear, was his loss. 15, 16 years later, I'm looking at and having this conversation saying that, it's that belief that we have that scares us. And I started looking at really, it's a part of life, right? And so if it is, and we don't know when it's going to come, how do we make the best of every relationship we are in today? How do we make the most of it? How, like you rightly said, how do you have gratitude, for the moments that we're sharing, and, even for the fight, can we have gratitude?
Yes.
Can we have fights? Can we be grateful even for that chick that goes on, constantly, because, those are the chicks that later on are going to be like, oh, if they, so to really,
they will be missed.
They will be missed. They will be missed.
Dad, why is nobody irritating me today?
They will be. And, that is, and we always think of, remember them for everything. And take these moments to really soak people in, the essence and these moments, and, and yes, unfortunately, we will all experience that someday.
Correct.
And that is an inevitable.
Yeah.
Right. And therefore, if that is the inevitable, then, like you said, reading about it or knowing more about it, and there are different forms of it. Buddhism says it's the journey of a new life. Imagine that for someone. Imagine all the things that they're going to go through again, childhood and play. And, you can actually put into prayer as to what their next life would be. It could be full of fun and floric and, everything that they ever wanted that they may never not have access to this life.
Correct.
And there's so many different ways. But at the end of the day, that journey of the grieving is a journey that we have to take. It's a bridge we have to cross. Yeah, there is no shortcut in that.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's a bridge that we all will cross. And if we look around at any given point of that time, you're not alone on that bridge.
Yes.
There are probably a million other people on that bridge. Yes. Yeah. So reach out, get the support, keep the loved ones in your being, and, share them with as many people as you possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. And every time somebody says, Ashton, I just lost somebody, what do I do now? The answer is grieve.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because grieving
Go
is
through it all.
Healing. It is healing. I mean, then if you go and research grief, it is absolutely the essence of healing. That's when your body goes into healing state.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Nana, this was so enlightening. Thank you so much for doing this with us. I know this was like we said, touchy topic, but I think at the end of the day, I think at the end of this podcast, it feels good having discussed this. And I hope everybody listening feels good after having discussed this. That if you have your parents with you, if you have your loved ones with you, go give them a hug right now. Right? Don't worry about them and live in that anxiety of what if will happen. Right now, they are there with you.
Yeah.
If you've lost somebody, grieve for that person. Remember the good memories that you all had. Even the chick, like you said, that happens. Remember those things and understand this is a process that we all have to go through.
Yes.
This is a part of our journey, right? We were born so that, and the next step is death. Yes. So it is all something that's going to happen. So let us celebrate it as well, instead of just getting, like you said, probably in a state of depression and not accepting it.
Yes. And for that, I think, Ashton, Safe Space India. So if you DM us at Safe Space India, we are running support groups for grief.
Okay, lovely.
And especially COVID-related grief, but grief in general, because there are a lot of people who are experiencing this journey. And we have seen over the last few support groups that it's been hugely sort of beneficial to kind of come together. So it happens on every Wednesday, 5 to 6 p.m. So if you just DM us, we will give you the link. But it's a safe space to really grieve together. So at Safe Space India, you can DM us for the support group details and, just join us in.
Lovely. That sounds like a beautiful thing you are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Superb. Nana, this was lovely. Thank you.
You're most welcome. And, our deepest support and love and kindness, blessing and healing to everyone out there.
Thank you.
So start these habits and share with us your progress using the hashtag #TheHabitCoach. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashton Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME180. That's Awesome180.
Feeling overwhelmed, anxious, struggling with too many obstacles, don't know where your life is headed? Well, if you are dealing with one or all of these, tune into the Positively Unlimited podcast, because in each episode, I share a life lesson, a life hack, a pro tip that can help you get your life back on track. All episodes are available on the IBM website, IBM Podcast app, or wherever it is that you get your podcast from.
Working Monday to Friday glued to your chair making you feel dull? Worry not. Get your 5-minute weekly dose of travel around the world with Postcards from Nowhere. Join me every Thursday as I explore the strange, obscure and fascinating parts of the world and bring out facets of travel you may not have thought of before. You can find us on the IBM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.